this class, we'll first go through a small introduction to cybersecurity, installing Kali Linux slash Parrot OS, just a brief of that. Then let's after that we'll move into the introduction to Linux systems and some commands. We'll try to cover most of this in this class, and if that's not possible, we will push some to the next class. So let's start. So the first thing first. Alright, so why do you want to get into cybersecurity? There are many domains available, some of them involving more with math, some of them more with logic, some of them more with art, and all of them. So each of it is your preference, but as an end goal, you should keep something in your mind, right? So cybersecurity jobs are always available. They might require some experience, but there are never shortages of cybersecurity security jobs, because cybercrimes do happen, and as long as they have that happens, we will need someone to secure the systems too. So here are some statistics that are available. These are some dated statistics, but they still represent the domain as it is. So as you can see, the unemployment rate is at 0% in 2019. In fact, there is a deficit of cybersecurity jobs in India, at least, because the cybercrime in 2020 has been unpredictable and huge. So knowing this domain has become a necessity for many. So that's about that. So what are the different roles you will get in cybersecurity? It starts all the way from just an analyst to the specialist to an engineer, all the way to a chief risk officer, who will basically control everything related to the production. So as you can see, the chart is quite long, and there are many sub under these two. So that's that. So what is cybersecurity? And as a description from, I think, Wikipedia, it's said as the protection of computer system and networks from the theft or damage to the hardware, software, electronic data, as well as disruption or misdirection of the services they provide. So that's pretty much it. You're protecting your data from anyone trying to steal it or damage it or manipulate it. That's that. There are some principles we usually follow in cybersecurity. The three, that is confidentiality, availability, and integrity. This is true for the entirety of information security as a whole. We need to make sure that our data is integral. That means it's not manipulated in any way. Confidentiality, to make sure it is well protected and available to everyone always. That is some principles we must follow. Alright, so big picture. Cybersecurity alone is a huge domain. There are many subdomains we follow. There is one for each and every one, to be true. So, but for now, we will be checking on the penetration testing and the penetration risk, and a bit of red team. This is where we are focusing now, but as you can see, that is not what cybersecurity is limited to. There's everything from checking operation, vulnerability management, to governance and your laws, to creating new systems which are secure. Right now, what we will be focusing is exploiting unsecure systems, and hence fixing them to make sure they're secure. That will be the goal of at least what we'll be teaching here at Zero Day. Here are some subdomains. At least we'll be covering most of this in the club. The penetration testing, it will be going on through your course. As you see, web application pen testing is, I think, the next class, the web fundamentals. This being the Linux fundamentals course. After that, you will go to client-side penetration, wireless network penetration. All of this will come in handy when you apply for jobs or an internship for penetration testing. Other ones are bug bounty programs, which are open source and available in platforms like Bugcrowd and others, to check to make sure unsecure systems are well protected, and if you find a bug, to report them. There are CTFs, which is a competition to show your skills, how much you know in this domain, and challenge others for a cash prize or some rewards. And there's red team and blue team, which is basically everything but more organized. The red team is the ones who attack, and blue teams is the ones who defend. Attack as in the ones who try to exploit, and defend are the ones who try to fix those exploits. If you guys are not understanding anything, feel free to stop me and ask me doubts. and I am known to go a bit too fast. So if I'm going too fast, please tell me to slow down. Yeah, because I'm not seeing the Discord right now. So yeah, that's that. So this first class will be on Linux fundamentals. We'll be learning on how to install Kali Linux or Parrot OS. We are starting with Kali or Parrot because these have most of the tools we'll need pre-installed in them, and you can do it in a basic Linux system too, but you'll have to manually install those tools. Just to make sure the sessions are beginner friendly, we'll be using these two distributions. So the commands, we have a set of commands we'll go through. In fact, the first 3 classes would be just these commands and understanding the Linux system as part of Linux fundamentals, and mastering the Linux tools, which should come in later stage, ideally in the intermediate part. So yeah, on to the terminal. Just before we go to the terminal, we will look at the installation process. In the middle, I'll just check. I guess you're all fine, right? Okay, I think so. So installation. First, I'll show you the VM way, the virtual machine way. Virtual machines are a way to what do I say? Virtualize would be a redundant word. Way to emulate another operating system in your current operating system. We use there are different softwares for this. The one we'll be using is Oracle VM VirtualBox. Another famous one is VMware. We'll not be using that here because it is proprietary and has some problems with Linux kernels. Okay, so how do we get started installing via VirtualBox? So as simple as googling Oracle VirtualBox. You click on the first link and you should see a big pop-up saying download VirtualBox 6.1. So click on that and choose your host. Hopefully most of you are using Windows or OS X, because if you are already using Linux, I don't think you'll have to do this. Okay, so that's that. Once you install, you will you'll see something like this, but without any, will they be empty here? I do have some boxes already installed, so you won't see this. So next thing you'll need to install would be the operating system. Yeah, the OS. There are 2 OSs we'll be focusing on, like I said already, Kali Linux and Parrot OS. For Kali Linux, just again search for Kali Linux, download Kali Linux, and you'll see some files. Only thing is, usually I am sure most of the tutorials will show you to install the ISO and do it. That's an easier way to do this, and I prefer you guys do this because there is less chance of Linux kernels breaking and stuff like that. So yeah, you'll have to go to the VirtualBox, sorry, not the VMware, Kali Linux 64-bit VirtualBox, and click on this offensive security page and go to the VirtualBox machines and install the 64-bit OVA. And if you're using 32-bit machine, 32-bit one. Yeah, same thing everywhere, if I have not mentioned that. So click on the torrent. Hopefully you have a torrent host like BitTorrent or uTorrent or others. If you don't, please install it, because most of the tools will rely on having that. Okay, so you install that, you run it, and yeah, you understand what's going to happen. You install it and it will be stored. Same thing for Parrot OS. If you're using Parrot, again, you don't have to install both, just one of them. The Parrot security OVA. Here you do have a direct download option. So if you don't have it, have a torrent client, use that. Otherwise, get torrent, and yeah, same method. So once you install, you'll have 2 options.
I had a question.
Please continue.
Like, it's okay if we use the ISO of Parrot, right?
That is the way usually you'll see in most tutorials. The only reason I'm not showing you is there are more chances of failure there, like the chances of the OS breaking. This is a much more easier method. That's it. ISO method is usually the way most people do, and please go ahead if you know if you already used the tutorials or other stuff. Yeah. And in fact, if you're gonna do something like live USB or dual boot, which I will explain later, you will need the ISO file, not the OVA. The OVA is strictly for virtual machines, and in particular VirtualBox, Oracle VirtualBox. So yeah, once you installed it, you'll see the tools kit. You'll have to click on import, and in the folder icon, just search your wherever you have installed your OVA file and just open. Next, and as you see already there are preset configuration done, which you will have to manually do if you're in ISO, if you're doing it in ISO method. So you don't have to disturb anything, just click import, and yeah, you'll have to agree to a license agreement, and you want to read it, please do read it. Agree, and it should import. This takes some time, but yeah, but basically that's it. There's nothing more to this. In fact, once you install, you'll see just one user prompt asking you what is the user. There'll be a default username password already set, and the credentials are available for Kali Linux in Kali Kali as Kali Kali, and in Parrot it is I think user and tour. A small Google will tell you that. Yeah, and cybersecurity in general is a lot on reliant on self-learning and mostly Googling. So if you don't get anything, do ask the community or a small Google search. Most of the time you will find the answer somewhere. Yeah. Is it done? Let's hope it's done. Okay, it's done. Yeah. Once it's done, okay. No other problems. Just before you start, a good thing to do would be to go to the settings, and you don't have to change anything else. This is just additional step so that you have internet connection and internet connectivity to your VirtualBox. It will be defaulted at NAT. If you want to use your virtual machine within your home network, or the network you're using as your laptop and maybe your phone if it's connected to the same Wi-Fi network, go for bridged adapter. That would use your internal Wi-Fi adapter as the connecting point. So you'll have an IP address in the sort of 192.168, which would mean it's in the local, it's in the home network. But instead of that, if you want to use just in a secluded network, which will be only for virtual machines, create your own NAT network. I don't think this option is available when you pre-install it. It'll tell you to create your own NAT network and just name it something, and just OK and start. That's it. There's nothing else to do. Yeah, so it will start. Kali Linux GNU. Just press enter. I pressed enter. It will boot up for the first time, and yeah, it's basically installed already. As I said already, the username password being Kali Kali as a default installation, and you put login. Give it some time, and yeah, there you go, your system is ready. Write control is usually your default key, something called the host key, which you will need to interact between your virtual machine and your normal PC. Yeah. So if you want to switch to full screen mode, I press right control plus F, same thing to get out of the full screen mode. Yeah, and there are more options available. Please check them out. So yeah, as you can see, the VM is ready. It took what? Only the downloading is the larger problem here. Other than that, if you are using OVAs, it should be really easy. Same thing for Parrot. I'm not going to show because well, it's a waste of time for now, but it's the same thing. Just OVA, find the place where you downloaded the Parrot OVA, just install it, and yeah, next, and the same stuff. You'll get a similar prompt as you saw for login in Kali, except this time the user credentials will be user and tour, TOOR, the reverse of root. Yeah, so that is installing using VM. I'm not very I don't know exactly how to, I'm not sure on how to use dual booting and live USB, but I can just give you a short glimpse on how to do that. You'll have the same method what you have done for installation, except instead of downloading OVA files, the links would be for ISO, the security ISO security. It doesn't matter. The KDE and Mate are just the desktop environment that will be using. It shouldn't matter. Ubuntu usually uses Mate, and KDE is the Kali one everyone uses. There's not a big difference in it, so feel free to choose any one. Same thing here in the normal Kali edition. You should just hit the torrent link for the normal installer, or if you're going live USB, directly live mode. You can install torrent mode itself, because it also has the option for live mode, but yeah, as a better measure, just put live. So once you install them, you'll need a USB, ideally greater than 32 or at least 32, because I think the OS itself, even though it's 4 gigs, after extracting and booting it into one of the USBs, it will be a lot bigger in size. So what was I checking? Oh yeah, Rufus. Let's go there. VM0A. Okay, not here. So you need to install one software other than the two you have already. The one being the either of the OSs or the virtual machine if you're using virtual machine. You'll have to install something called Rufus. You can again Google it. A small Google search would give it to you. Yeah, official website, and download. That's it. So you need to install the device. The device would be the USB machine. As soon as you connect it to your machine, it will detect it. Right now I don't have a USB around, but I think you get the. Oh, I don't have it. Never mind. Yeah, plug it in. Yeah, as you saw, almost instantly you saw it. I have 16 gigs. The device. 16 gigs won't be enough. I just took a random USB that is next to me. Otherwise, you should use 32 or above. In the boot selection, you'll have to select the ISO file which you have just downloaded. As you see, it's already written there what type of file it is. And leave it the defaults and press ready and start. That will install the ISO to your USB. This is same even whether you're dual booting or live USB. It's the same process still here. After this would be where the challenging part comes. You will have to get into your bootloader and make sure you have to put your USB drive as the first disk. For that, I prefer the you check out the YouTube videos, because I can't stream that. And once you boot up into the ISO you want, for live mode there's a live version, and for install there's an installer version. And for dual booting, the another thing you must do is the disk management. You have to create a separate partition just for the ISO, and you should just keep it open. And if you don't have, you should use the shrink volume to change and to how much ever you need it to. So that is that. To do that. Okay, so once you do that and then go into the ISO, this must be done before you boot into your ISO. Once you boot into your ISO, now you can see that partition and use that partition to install your ISO into that specific partition being the data required for you to where your entire new OS will be installed. So that's about that. That's the 3 methods to do it. Any doubts until now? Like that. Okay, so now that the installation and introduction has been done, let's move into the main part. That would be the Linux system itself. So this is my system, not the one which we installed right now. Okay, that is weird. Of course. There are some problems with resolution with Kali. Not sure is it persistent with Parrot, but Kali does give some problem with resolution. In fact, that's because I had 2 of them running. Ouch, my bad. I think I forgot to say that. When you close your system, there are 2 ways to do it. One being the saving the machine state, other being power off, and they do exactly what they say, and they mean 2 different things. Power off will boot your system off, while save the machine state will take a lot more space, but will basically freeze whatever the state of the machine was. If you are maybe editing a file, it will be right there. You just have to come back in, it will be still editing the same file. I don't recommend that. Ideally power off when you're not using it. So let me get into my finally. There we go. So every Linux system will have at least a terminal. To all OSs at least have a basic terminal. This would be your text-based interface. If you're used to Windows until now, this would be a bit of a change, because most of the work in Linux systems we will try to do it within the terminal itself, because most of the tools which we will be using through these courses would be text-based. Most of them don't even have a graphical interface. So yeah, that's the thing. To get the terminal, this would be a default terminal. So that you guys don't get confused. This is a custom terminal called Terminator. I use it because we can have multiple terminals and stuff. Other than that, yeah, it's up to you guys which terminal you use. It's a preference thing. And yeah, there are different types of shells too. The base shell you see here is a bash shell. The one I'm using is called ZSH. There are different shells available, each one having its own advantages and disadvantages. It again comes down to preference. I will not be telling you how to install these. That would be up to you, because that's a preference thing, again, personal preference thing. Okay, so now that we are here, let's start with the commands. Just before that, I'll just tell you why Linux. Most of the websites you see or servers you host on are basically running on Linux servers, and by using Linux servers you are more you understand them more, and later when maybe you want to develop on these servers, it'll be easier if you know Linux. And even for us as penetration testers, if you are working on Linux, it'll be easier to break into Linux because you are more familiar with it. You might know some specific folders where you have seen some glitches happening or some bugs or some exploits and stuff like that. So yeah, that's that. And if you're working with anything cloud based, or I think most of the servers on the cloud are Linux based because they're open source and free. That's one great thing on Linux. The entire system is open source and the code is available on Git. And who knows, you can also ask for a pull request and put your name in the Linux kernel itself too. So let's start now with the commands, some basic commands. The first thing we'll start is how to create a text file, because most of the time you'll be working with text files in Linux. You need to create them, right? Maybe you want to create a Python file or just a basic text file or C file or something. We'll be using the touch command. The touch followed by the name of the file which you want to create, maybe a.text. Now to check what all are the current files available in the current directory. This is the directory here. This is how it looks in ZSH, and here it will be cd into something. See that the tilde symbol there usually stands for the home directory. That home directory would be home/Kali if your username is Kali, and if you're the root user, it will be root /root. About the file system, we will come to them just after we cover this basic commands. So touch was to create a new file. How do I know the file was created? ls is to list all the files, folders, and everything that is currently available in the current directory. That is ls. There are something called parameters available for each command. Each one, this is the auto completion. You won't get the parameters like this. It will be just a space. Maybe I should work with bash instead. Yeah. There are to specify a parameter, you use the minus symbol or a hyphen. Okay. Followed by the parameters. So for that you need to know what are the parameters available for Linux. Parameters are basically used for like specifying more details or specific requests you want to give to that command. So stuff like that. To check all the parameters of a given command, or in fact what does a command do, there's another command called man short for a manual page maybe. So man space ls being the command I want to know the different parameters about. So that will drop you into this text page where you can see all the parameters and description on what the command does. So ls lists the directory contents. So -a to make sure all the dot entries are not usually if you do ls you'll not see the dot files, dot folders of files starting with the symbol dot. That's how the naming goes. Even it's the similar in Windows 2, which we'll talk about later. So if you do ls -a, now you'll see there are a lot more than before. And no, you will not have the same ones if you download it. This is because of the different this depends on the different softwares you have downloaded and other stuff. So yeah, so -a for dot hidden commands. Some other important ones would be -l for directory listing of it, which it will have all the ownership, the when it was last accessed, and a lot more commands. I'm just looking for it. Yeah, a long listing format, -l. And another one is h. I think that's human readable, right? Yeah, human readable as in which do not have some special lines between them. Not exactly sure how to explain that, but as I told you can always Google and check it out. Alright, so ls -alh. Now if I do so if you do ls -a, you saw the dot files, right? If I do ls -h, you'll see the human readable files, which is basically everything. And ls -a a over l over, I forgot it, ls -l. L has this special long listing format. This format is really important to us because it gives a lot of details which is important to us. This first part is the ownership, is to tell the ownership. First one stands for directory. The first three, next three and three are for the three different types of ownership you can have. That would be your root user, the group user, and your current user. Each one has its own permission, R being readable, writable, and X standing for executable. So I will go into the details of these when I'll be explaining the chmod command. That will happen in the next class. So now we have covered, I think, ls, just ls, touch and ls, and man. So one other thing, now you know the directory. How do you create a new directory? So to create a new directory, it's mkdir followed by the name of your file. Name of your file, if you want it to be 0day, mkdir 0day. Press enter, and now if you do an ls, and you should find 0day. Yeah, it's the last thing there, 0day. Now how do you enter these directories? That would be cd. cd is to change into the 0day directory, cd 0day. So now you are in 0day. I can check because ls there's nothing inside it because it's a new directory. All when you do mkdir, it's an empty directory that's created. So cd is done and mkdir is done. So now imagine, now I did touch one file and create a new file using touch a.txt. So now if I do an ls, there you go, the a.txt is created. Now how do you write something inside the text? For this there are many different text editors, some within the terminal, some external, and there are many other ways to do it. So the one I'll be using now is Nano, because that's my preferred one. It's totally again preference wise. There are many other ones which include Vim, some the third party ones like Subble, even you can install VS Code. Yeah, that will come to the installation part just after this. So imagine I want to write something in a.txt, nano a.txt. Yeah, so it drops me into this place. Again, it's within the terminal. Let's type hi. Control X to exit and to save Y. Enter. And now how do I display the contents of a file? To display the contents of a file, you will be using the cat command. Cat followed by the name of the file, cat a.txt. Yeah, so there you go. We wrote hi is come, followed by a \n, which is a standard delimiter. So that's how you display command, and this is true for most files. Even if there are binary files, you can technically see the exact output of them. Clear is to clear the screen, because that's a habit of mine. Okay, next, I was talking about installing files. In fact, the first thing once you come inside into a Linux system, you'll need to know how do you install files and how do you update your system, right? Unlike Windows, you don't get auto updates here. Even though you can create auto updates using some scripting tools, the default way to do this would be apt-get. Apt-get would be the way to install, uninstall, update everything. So if you want to install some software which you have seen in the internet, like the one here, this terminal I'm using, this is not the standard terminal, right? It's called Terminator. To install that, you do apt-get install Terminator. Yeah. So it's installing. Sometimes it'll ask you a prompt if the size is really huge or requires some external permissions. Then you just press yes or no, Y or yes, to say yes, I do accept that, and yeah, it'll install. Once it's installed, for me, since it's already installed, it told it'll just be upgraded. So same for uninstall, apt-get uninstall, and another thing is apt-get update to install your system. Yeah, all right. Apt-get update will update your system. So, and each of these are repositories which have most of these binaries. The software is there already available. Sometimes your binary will not be available within the within these repositories. Usually the repos will make sure your major ones, like you found Terminator, maybe Cherry Tree, or any other tool which is related to it might be there. But imagine you created a tool and you want to install it. You might not easily get it through apt-get. So for that you can use different ways like get, wget if it's a direct .deb file, and many other ways are there. Please check that out. It's a part of your self-learning there. So now we know how to install, update, and everything, and we are done with creating files. So how do we check the processes that are running right now? Like in Windows, you know it, right? I'll just keep a separate terminal for Windows and that, so it's easy. Alright, you all are still there, right? Hello? I have not disconnected anywhere or anything, right? Hello? Alright.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So in Windows, you do the Control-Alt-Delete and get the task manager, right? The closest one we have to that in Linux would be PS. Process list. So these are the three processes that are running. Again, as in how we check for ls, there are different parameters. Even PS has different parameters. The most famous one is AUX, which will give you again a detailed listing of all the hidden process that is also running. Because as you saw here, it just showed 3, right? But here we have so many, because these are some of them even include the OS which are running in the background in the OS, or the OS managements. Yeah. So yeah, all of them, and you will see your ones that you have just installed, like zsh, bin bash, ps-aux, the command which you have right now. So that was PS process list. Again, if you have any doubts on any of the commands, man ps, and yeah, the report on snapshot, current processes, and yeah, you see every system. Yeah, as you see, again, all of the parameters are interchangeable. Again, that depends on the type of binary. Not always. Some softwares do allow that, some softwares don't, as you will see if in the intermediate when you work on third-party softwares. Alright, so next, yeah, the different types of users. I'm already root user, but usually there are different users available within the system, right? So imagine your user is Kali. Yeah, I have Su Kali. So Su is for changing the user. It's like logging off and logging on as a new user. Yeah, except you'll have control only of the terminal, not their entire system. So SU will give you the permissions of the that particular user. SU root. Yeah, there you go. It SU automatically gives it to a bash. Since I am using ZSH, it looks that different. So another one is sudo. Sudo would be your master. It's like a master switch. So you run this as root, even though you imagine you are not root. I was Kali. So Kali is a user again. if I'm to check all the users, it's users root, and there's groups. Yeah, these are different groups. Each group has their own set of permissions and everything like that. We'll again go detailed into these users, groups, and file ownership when we talk about the chown, chmod and other stuff. Alright, so where is the SSH? Alright, so I'm back inside SSH. Now you see I'm Kali user, and now I want to be root. So even you don't even need to do su root, because you can, like I said already, sudo means you're running as a root. So if you do sudo su, yeah, you have no root user, and it'll ask you for your password. I have configured it such that Kali doesn't ask a password, but it will definitely ask you the password of Kali user if you have sudo permissions. Alright, so that was that. Now let's talk about the file systems in Linux. We have 7 minutes. I'll just give you a brief. As you see, everything in Kali is running on directories, right? So what is the the root directory, the directory where everything else, like this is the subdirectory of Kali. Kali is a subdirectory of home. So what is home a subdirectory of? That is what you call the root directory. cd/ parent directory, actually that will be a better way to say it. If you don't get confused, root and /root. So if you do a list, this will definitely be the same for any Linux based file. This is any Linux based system, and at least for Kali and parent, it will be definitely the same. You will have the same bin, boot, dev, etc, home, media, mnt, opt, and all of these. Each of them serve a purpose. All your binaries are stored, at least your major binaries are stored in bin. So cd bin ls, and these are your binaries that is running. Binaries means the softwares which are running. Like you did ls, right? You will find ls somewhere here. You saw sudo. See, sudo and su are there. The reason why they're highlighted is because they have root permissions. There is a lot more. As you install also some binaries based on that where you're storing them will run from the specific places. For example, not exactly all of your binaries are here. Some of them are, at least most of them are, but some of them will not be here. To check where your binaries are running from, you will do, we'll have to check your environment variables. If you do env, you will check your environment variables. So the shell, my default shell is bin bash. These are my basic environment variables, and you will see path. These are the path variables. These are the variables from where, now if I do, I did ls, right? How do I know? Well, ls does not work on the current directory. It maybe isn't in the current directory I'm working on. Wait, let us go to home. When you are in here, there is no ls command exactly here. So how are you running it? Because you will have to know, right? Like you did cat i.py, maybe like that. So you know it's running, it's in the exactly the same directory, so you didn't have to do any slashes or something here. But for ls you didn't have to do anything. You just had to do ls and it worked. The reason why that works is because of the path variable. The path variable will make sure from where your binary runs. So all the binaries which are available in these folders, that is user local sbin, user local bin, user sbin, user bin, sbin, and bin, all of them will be executed directly from this terminal without any slashes or dots involved or any subdirectories involved. That's the way you can run these commands. I think I forgot to explain that, but not sure how many of you noticed or asked. So you see, all of these are the ones we know, but there are two before that. There is a dot and a double dot. What does this mean? Dot represents the current directory which you are working on, and double dot is the directory before it. So the parent directory, let's think like that. So Kali is dot, home would be dot dot for the current directory. So if I go to, like, we went to 0 day, right? We created 0 day. So 0 day. If I do ls minus alh or lah or any format, dot represents the current directory. The dot represents the parent directory, that's Kali. So if I want to go back to Kali, I don't need to always specify cd/home/Kali. No, you can just do cd dot dot. Cd dot dot will move you to one directory before. So 0 day, now you are in Kali. cd dot won't do anything because you are in the same directory. You will be using this as shorthand, which will be used in a lot more commands. Many commands will require directory listing the directory and working with files in it. So that time these shorthand will be really helpful. Another shorthand, at least for cd, is hyphen. If you do cd hyphen, you will go to the directory which you're last in. So currently you are in Kali. Before Kali, you saw I did a cd to Kali itself, so I'm back here. But if I do cd 0 day, alright, and again I do cd dot dot, now I am in Kali, but I want to go back to 0 day, but I didn't remember the previous folder I was in, directory I was in. So if I do cd hyphen, you'll go back directly to home Kali 0 day. So that's a shorthand that might be useful to you guys. Alright, so any other ones I can explain? I might have missed. I forgot some basic ones too. To check which user you are right now, you can do who am I. Who am I will tell you the current user. Similarly, for the current path, there's pwd, present working directory, and I'm sure most of these commands should be familiar to you guys, because I think they will teach you in the first class of Python or any lab you will be learning, because this would be required once you work with work in the CS lab or any lab. Yeah. Alright, so I finished pwd. Who am I? Anything else? No, everything else is more string manipulation and or network tools, which we will discuss in the upcoming classes. So that is the basic Linux commands, at least to you saw it, traversing the different directories, to create new files, to write something to a new file and stuff like that, and to install new files. Yeah, for example, if you want to code in Python, you would have done apt-get install python 3, and then just python 3 and name of your file name. Do I have a file here? Okay, let's just write one fast. .py. I'm telling Python just because I'm hoping you guys are at least a little bit familiar. This is true for most of the languages or different softwares you'll be using. So python 3 .py. So yeah, hi, hello, print hello. So like that, you for C files you'll have to first compile them. You'll be using GCC. For other coding languages, maybe you'll have to use PHP, Java, and there are many others, right? If it doesn't exist, do an apt-get or search it in the internet and download. The instructions will be available. Yeah, so that is that. Anything else did I miss? No, I don't think so. If I missed, I will make sure I will cover it in the next class, or any other commands which you have any doubts or you think I didn't cover, please let me know. Yeah, this is all based on just mutual learning. Yeah,
I have no doubt. Yeah, for some reason on my VirtualBox, I need to type sudo every single time I want to try to install something. Is there some way that I can just enter the commands?
Like you saw, right? That's because you're probably Kali user right now, or the user, the basic user. When you did sudo, it'll probably ask you for the password too, right? To skip all of that, you first become sudo. So you do sudo su. Okay, you saw, right? Sudo is for running it as root, and su is to move to that particular user. So if you do sudo su, now you are the root user. So now you don't need to do sudo every time. You can just do apt-get, because sudo just runs it as user root, right? And if you are root, you don't need it. Yeah, that's one way to do it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other doubts or anything you think I missed or I should cover or anything? It's the class is basically done. Any command to list all the commands on the prompt? It's interesting because last time someone has the same question last year. The thing is, yes.
Yeah, I didn't entirely follow the installation instructions, so do we just have to follow the video?
And the current class is also being recorded. It will be available to you guys, and please go through that if you're going through VirtualBox, and if you're doing dual boot or live USB, I think it's in the announcements, right? Yeah, the links are right there. Please go through it. You will definitely need to install it. I'm not expecting you guys to have it running during the class, but hopefully later after the class is over, you guys do check it out, try some of these commands, get used to the Linux system itself. That will be really helpful for the later classes. Yeah, I was once again. Yeah, some
Which method do we go with?
as in
Like, what specifications are needed for each method?
VirtualBox, I think minimum is 4 GB. At least that's the said minimum requirement according to VirtualBox. But I believe it's more of a hit or trial. Sometimes, even though you have 4 GB, maybe your processor is powerful and you do have a GPU, you might be able to run VM smoother. And if you are able to do it, yeah.
Okay, so try VM initially.
The thing is, the easiest one to do, as you saw, right, is VirtualBox. Doesn't take long, maximum 10 minutes. Longest time is only for downloading. If it doesn't work out, maybe try live USB. If live USB doesn't work out, go for dual boot, because dual boot is a permanent thing, right? You are basically allocating specific memory in your laptop for however long it runs for that specific OS. So just be careful.
Is VMware okay?
It is okay, but I would prefer you guys use VirtualBox. The only reason why is, now you guys are in beginner, it's fine, but as you climb up and you go to advanced level, you will be dealing with more virtual boxes, like how you install for your own Kali, right? How you saw the OVA files to install, you'll be installing other virtual machines too as victim machines. That time the support for VirtualBox is way higher than VMware. VMware is more proprietary, and it doesn't really go well with virtual Linux kernels in general. So you won't have high support for it. That's the only reason I'm saying VirtualBox. Yeah, but feel free to use it if you feel that you're gonna work on VMware more. Yeah, but preferably please stick to this.
This uTorrent is okay to download, right? Like it's not going to affect our comp
No,
in any
not
way.
at all. But you must be careful on when you install it. Please make sure the startup settings are all right. Is it fine with you running? Are you fine with it running on startup, or what are permissions you gave? That's it. It doesn't download anything else. It's just a client. It's a download manager. Only problem will come is if you download something wrong from the internet and try to install it using uTorrent. We can't assure you about that.
Because like my McAfee said that like it's a risky program.
It does.
So.
McAfee has a lot of false it stops even my C files. So yeah, that's that. Any other doubts? It's a small chat. You can feel free to ask any questions, at least related to this subject now. Yeah.
Yeah, I just tried the app get installed Terminator command right now, but I don't see it downloaded anywhere. Not even in downloads.
That's the thing. You will not see it in downloads. The way to see it would be to type the command itself, because you don't have an exe file for it. The only way to run this is Terminator, and you should see it. Just try that out. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing for most of the things. Whatever you do, apt-get install, you will not see it any in download file or maybe in the desktop or anywhere. No, there are no shortcuts here. It will be accessible only when you access it through the terminal. Yeah. Any other doubts?
apt-get is somewhat like pip, right?
Yes. Yeah, pip is for Python, right? Python package manager. Similarly, installer. Similarly, apt-get is for is for Linux. But again, it doesn't cover everything. I said it right. You'll have to sometime use Git for some softwares, Git cloning it, or sometimes a wget. But most of the time, these repos will have the essential commands available. At least the Kali one and the Parrot one will have most of your attacker tools required for pen testing available. And yeah, the reason why we told you to install Kali Linux, I forgot to say, is as you can see, if you check in the menu, you'll see that the amount of tools that are already installed. You might not even use most of it, but the point is it saves you time, right, from installing it again. So that was the reason. We will go through some of them as you climb the tracks. Now you're a beginner, we won't be using most of them. As you go to intermediate and advanced, you will use more of them. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter that like if you use Kali and we
Not
use
at all.
Parrot.
It does
right?
not matter. It doesn't matter even if you use Linux, if you are well versed in Linux. As long as you are using the same tools which I have and we are running the same programs, it's fine. That's it. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, and also that thing that you said about Terminator
Yeah.
work. Thanks a lot.
And anytime you have a problem, you can contact the mentors. Put a problem in the different channels which we have. And if nothing works, you can always Google, right? Cybersecurity is all about self-learning and Googling. So if we don't help, do spend some time searching for the right answers.
In TryHackMe,
Oh, yeah.
like, is OpenVPN mandatory?
Let's come there. I think I forgot to explain that. Thank you for reminding me. The assignment for this week for you guys is on TryHackMe. We expect most of you to complete this. It is mandatory to complete it, and if you don't complete the assignments, as they pile up on, we'll remove you from the club. So how do you get to TryHackMe? Go to tryhackme.com. For me, it's directly going to the dashboard, but if you for you it'll you'll get this prompt. Click on login, create an account, then login, and for the first for this class we expect you to do the Linux fundamentals module. You just have to go to learn, overview, Linux fundamentals. It's available right there. Try to do the first three and submit us just a screenshot of you completing it. At least that will make sure will give us guarantee that you have done it. So the question now was, is OpenVPN mandatory? That is the best way to do it, but that is not the only way. The other way is using this attack box. Only problem is, I think attack box is available only once per day. What's happening here is, now I just told about the attacker and the victim, right? It is similar to that. We'll be imagine Kali as the attacker and this box which you are using. These are virtual boxes similar to one we install now, just made by someone else. We'll be trying to get into the system and execute commands there. That's the only difference. As you go later on, we'll see how to get much more higher privileges and stuff like that. As the basics, what you're doing here is trying to access this machine from your machine and executing commands. And the one way is using this attack box, which basically create its own VM attack box. Like instead of Kali, it will create one VM which will use to attack. That's what's happening here. But like the guy already said, we should use OpenVPN. There is no other way. There's only one way. So you should do apt get install OpenVPN. Okay. Oh, sorry, spelling mistake. Yeah, it will install. If it is not there, if it is already installed, you just upgrade it. Once you install it, this is one of the this is the other way to do it. The attack box is another way to do it, but OpenVPN is the better way and preferred way. So to go there, I think it's in profile, right? So sure. Access, sorry, it's in Access. In Access, connect using OpenVPN. Which operating system? We are in Windows, but we need it for Linux. So to install it, we need to download our OpenVPN configuration pack. Just click on download, and this would be your name, your username, which you used to log in. .ovpn. Once you have that, what you'll have to do is let's go somewhere there. Alright, so I already have it here. So I do open VPN space name of the configuration file we just download and run it. So it will connect you to the same network as the victim machine. That's the reason we are using this, so that now we can access the victim machine directly. Also the attack VM is also ready. So before we start, we need to deploy the machine. So basically start the victim machine. So you click on deploy, let it start. Oh, it's right here. After a minute the IP address will show up, and that IP address is basically the and if you ping the IP address using your just will open a new terminal. You should not close this terminal, the one you use for OpenVPN. You can keep it in background, but you shouldn't close it, because if you close it, you are basically out of the VPN. Open a new tab, and now if once the IP is ready, I can show you how it's connected to the same network. You can always check using ifconfig. That was another command. It should check. Okay, 1 second. Please don't get alarmed by that. Never mind, I'll do it later. You will see only 3 of these. You won't see all of these. These are Docker containers. You will see just 2. You will see an ETH0 and an LO. LO being your local network, that's your home, and your ETH being your adapter. Hopefully if you use NAT network, you should see this running. Right now it's 192. You will see this if you are running it in your home network, and if you are using the NAT network, you should see an IP address similar to this. Oh, not this. This 10.0.2.15 on your ETH0. That means that's your network. And now we connect to the VPN, right? It opened another network for us. The new network being TUN0, and this is your IP address in this new network. We will teach you about IP addresses, ports, and these networks in later classes. So yeah. This is the IP address of your victim machine. So if you copy it, and I'll try to check if I can access that machine from Kali. How to do that? If I do a ping, it will send some messages to the attacker to the victim machine, and you can see I get a response. I am getting a response. If the machine did not exist, for example, I do something like this. That's not even right format. See, I don't get anything. There's no ping. There's no returns. Here you get some return. That means you're on the same network. So once you're connected to the same network, then I think you can follow whatever is given here. They have listed how do you do everything. So please go through it. And yeah. And one other thing I think I must explain is SSH. Because I think that's required for this machine alone, not all machine, but for this machine they already give you access to the victim so that you run all these commands there. To run all this machine, you should use a command called SSH, which opens a secure shell, basically one of the terminal of the victim machine. You can operate it from your attacker machine. So how do you specify that? SSH space the username. That will be somewhere here. I think it will be in the latest. See, it's actually here. If you want SSH machine, connect to a network and use the following. See, username is Shiba1, right? So SSH Shiba1 at the IP address. What is the IP address? 10.10.118.110. It's also here. When I copy it here. And yeah, that's actually it. You don't need to. The port is in the default port, so we don't have to do anything. Type yes. It'll ask you for the password. The password was Shiba1. Another thing about Linux is it won't show you the stars that you usually see. Even though I have typed the password, there's nothing shown in the screen. So yeah, now I have a shell of Shiba. And after that, I think you can go through the thing they have given and try to complete the first three rooms of Linux fundamentals. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you again. before reminding me. I told you.
Are the videos recorded?
Yes, in fact, it is recording right
Is
now.
video-
Don't worry, this forum won't be recorded. Up till the lesson will be recorded and will be uploaded to the Zero Day Cybersecurity Club YouTube channel soon. Okay. Any other questions?
How often would we have
I'm
classes?
sorry, I couldn't hear that.
How often would
Every
we have
Saturday
classes?
afternoon. If you have classes on Saturday afternoon too, then we'll reschedule it to maybe Sunday or some feasible date. But as a normal time, just keep Saturday afternoon for Zero Day Cybersecurity class.
Okay.
Actually, it should be on usually 3 to 5 since most of us had classes till I think 4, so it was rescheduled to 5.
When do we need to do the assignment back?
Try to do it within the week. It doesn't take long. You saw I'm basically halfway done already. You just have to see, understand it.
No, my laptop's kind of run into an issue, so it's gonna take 2 weeks to get fixed. So
That is
Yeah.
exceptional cases. You'll have to DM me. We'll talk about that. We need some proofs and stuff. Yeah. Other than that, as a general method, every week try to submit your assignments. Yes.
Hello. How are we supposed to like upload it? Like just what are we
Yes,
supposed to
the screenshot
screenshot?
of the 100%. And once you get 100%, you'll see some confetti and stuff, a small
Fine.
picture saying you've completed a room. Just take a screenshot of that and send it to us. Yeah. And
Fine.
if you
Thank you.
if you're willing, please try to write a write-up. Write-up means a way to document yourself on how you did it. So basically, what are the commands you used and everything. This would be useful later because for your own documentation, you will know what was your process on how you started, and it's a learning thing for you guys. Write up as in nothing, just some notes. Maybe open a Word document. So what did you do first? I SSH into it. How did I SSH? Command was SSH followed by username at IP address. Basically your own notes, and just share it with us. Yeah, that would be yes.
I really didn't understand how you connected that
Yes,
try hack me with
I'll
the
explain to
terminal.
you, no problem. Also, same thing here. Do you understood how I logged in, right? How do I create it? Just sign up, then log in. Once you log in, you will come to a similar page like this. Just maybe nothing here. That's it. All right. So you go to access. Then you will have to download your configuration file. Actually, I went there. It's right here. Download my configuration file, and so for some reason it's not working, you can regenerate them and change them. Ideally keep the default one, don't change them. Yeah, so download it. Once you download it, you get that OVPN file, right? You saw that. I'll show it to you. First let me exit. Try hack me. You get this your username .ovpn. Then you must install OVPN software, the binary. So like you saw already, apt get install OpenVPN. It's not OVPN, it's OpenVPN. And if you're non-root, sudo before that. So do that and install OpenVPN. Then that's it. And simple thing is OpenVPN followed by the name of your configuration file you downloaded from TryHackMe. And enter. It should now connect you there. Oh my god, I think it's already running there. So if you see initialization sequence complete, I think that's usually the term. Once you see that, that means you're connected. And now do not disturb this tab at all. Ideally open a new tab, right click and open a new tab, or just click on the terminal and get a new tab. Just don't disturb it. We will see how to background these processes in the later classes. That will be useful for you guys.
You go up. I just want to see the command that you did right after OpenVPN configuration
okay,
file.
we did that and we're connected, right? Now we are connected. Okay, now whichever box we are running, so it's Linux fundamentals, right? Linux fundamentals part 1. I will close the attack, but the same. Now whatever commands you want to run on Kali, so same, you can run that SSH and stuff like that here. The same. Only thing is it's connected to the network directly. That's the only reason of attacker box. Alright, never mind. that. So see, you should deploy. You should click on deploy here. It will be in the beginning of basically all the VMs in TryHackMe, all the modules in TryHackMe. Once you click on deploy, it will start this. You see active machine information. This will take I think 1.5 minutes. Once it's done, you get the IP. You're basically connected. You know it because you already connected to the VPN, and once the IP comes up, you can ping to check if the IP is up or not. Alright, once you know it is up also, the IP is running, then to connect to the root, the shell of that, basically the terminal of this attacker machine, they already gave us the SSH credentials. If you want to SSH into the machine, connect to the network and use the following SSH login credentials. So username is Shiba1, password is Shiba1. So to do that, SSH followed by username. What is the username? They gave the username. Username is Shiba1. So you put Shiba1 there. At IP. Now we got it. We'll get it from here. That's it. And then press enter. Once you press enter, I think it'll ask you a prompt. Do you wanna accept the fingerprint or something? Press yes. Type YES. Yes. Enter. Then it'll ask you for the password. Once you get the password prompt, type in the password. Again, there won't be stars or anything to maybe check your cursor. It is running in the background, don't worry. Just type Shiba1 and enter. Then you should basically be in the shell of the victim machine. Yes, did I miss anything, or did you not understand anything specific in there? Then please tell. Okay,
I
no
understand.
problem.
I'll try
Yeah.
it. Thanks.
Anything else? I'm guessing not. So thank you guys for joining the first beginner class for Zero Day Cybersecurity Club. Hopefully you keep continuing to join every week. So yeah, that's it. You guys can leave now. Any doubts or anything, you can always ask in the chats, hopefully in the beginner chat, or if it's installation, there are different support channels for that. Please ask your doubts there.